In this free 1-hour course, I'm going to show you my cold email system that generates 3 sales calls per day for my business. It also generated $67,000 in cold hard cash in just 35 days. And the best part is that you can literally just copy and paste this entire system into your business. So whether you're a SaaS company, an agency, or just a normal B2B service-based business, this will work for you. We're going to cover 8 chapters. First is why cold email in 2025. Second is will cold email work for your specific business? Chapter 3 is cold email infrastructure. Chapter 4 is actually scraping lead lists. Chapter 5 is cold email messaging. Chapter 6 is your campaign setup. We're gonna walk through that. Chapter 7 is advanced strategies so you can scale your outbound. And then of course, chapter 8 is key metrics to track so you know what's working. And by the way, at the end of this course, you're gonna have 5 bonuses. The first bonus is my exact 1-sentence AI prompt that builds my entire lead list, pre-qualifies each prospect, and it finds their verified email and phone number, and it takes about 5 minutes a month. The second bonus is the underground deliverability hack that even Gmail employees don't want you to know. This is gonna guarantee inbox placement for you every single time. Bonus number 3 is a twisted psychology trick that will make prospects desperate to reply to your emails. And then fourth, my favorite one, is my exact tech stack that sends 20,000 cold emails a month for less than what most people spend on their lunch every month. And the fifth and final bonus is the reply VSL system that converts every positive response into warm sales meetings. If you follow this course to a T, you will never have to worry about lead flow again. So chapter 1, why cold email in 2025? And again, you guys can skip ahead using the video timestamps below. I wanted to make this super easy for you guys to solve any specific problems you have with this video. So feel free to go through that below. And before we get into the actual practical setup of cold email and insights, I want to go over why cold email is so powerful and why it is, essentially the most cost-effective, scalable, and predictable way to generate leads for B2B companies in 2025. The main moat when it comes to cold email is essentially having control. What I mean by that is if you're running paid ads, a lot of the times, if algorithms change, it's going to mess up your entire ad strategy and you can't really go back. That's going to destroy your campaigns. On the other side, cold email is going to give you control over your message, your ideal client profile, which is your audience, and then of course, your results. When you build a proper cold email system using the methods that I'm about to teach you, you can essentially predict with remarkable accuracy just how many leads you're going to generate next week, next month, and sometimes even next quarter and next year. This predictability is what allows businesses to scale confidently and hire confidently because you know that lead flow is taken care of. Because when you know that sending 10,000 emails every single week will generate in about 200 replies, that will turn into 50 sales calls, you can plan your growth, you can hire the right people, and you can make strategic growth decisions based off of data rather than just guessing or hoping that your marketing works next month. So let's quickly talk about costs for cold email. And this is where cold email almost becomes laughable because of how much better it is than other marketing channels. A properly set up cold email system generally can cost just $100 a month, anywhere between 200 to 600, regardless if you're sending 10,000 cold emails or 100,000 cold emails. Let me repeat that because of how important this is. Your costs do not scale with the amount of volume that you're sending. And this is so different than every other marketing channel. For example, if you're spending $5,000 a month on Facebook ads, if you want to 10x your results, you have to spend $50,000 in ad spend. With cold email, it's actually ridiculously easy and cheap to go from 10,000 cold emails a month to 100,000 cold emails a month. And it definitely does not cost 10 times more. It's probably the difference between spending $400 a month and spending $800 a month. That is an asymmetrical ROI. And the economics are just so dramatically different that it just feels unfair. And perhaps the most powerful part of cold email is something that is impossible to replicate with other channels. It lets you skip the gatekeepers and reach the exact decision makers that your champion is. You're not just hoping that they'll see your LinkedIn post, that they'll click on your ad, or that they'll just see your Twitter content or your YouTube content. You are reaching out directly to them and you're putting your message in their inbox, where they're probably spending a couple hours per day. And of course, think about how important decision makers consume information. They're not scrolling through social media looking for vendors, right? They're not really clicking on ads either. They're in their email inbox, talking with customers, talking with potential clients, communicating with their team, and making decisions. When your message, if it is a strong one, appears in that environment, it is competing with important business communication, not just entertainment or social media. That's why cold email is so powerful, especially if you're targeting the higher end of the market, these Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies. I've seen so many cold emails successfully reach and engage these C-level executives at these massive companies, people who would genuinely be impossible to reach on other channels. So now that you understand just how powerful cold email really is, we're gonna go over if cold email is even right for your business. Chapter 2, is your business suitable for cold email? Now, I need to be honest with you about something. Most cold email gurus will not tell you this, but not every business should even use cold email. In fact, I would estimate that cold email is probably the wrong decision for about 40% of businesses. Because I'd rather you know upfront if cold email isn't right for your situation, rather than you waste months, watch 100 of my videos, and then just not see results at all. Because for some business models, cold email fundamentally will not work for you. You have to have very specific requirements that must be met for cold email to be effective. And unfortunately, if your business does not meet these requirements, you will struggle no matter how perfect your copy, your infrastructure, your subject line is. So a couple non-negotiable requirements is that cold email must be B2B. It works for business to business sales, not business to consumer. Now, this is not just advice. This is a fundamental requirement based off of how cold email actually works. So here's why this matters so much. A lot of these businesses that you will be targeting, they have publicly listed email addresses, job titles, and company information, and of course, contact details, so you can target them. When you're targeting a marketing director at a massive B2B SaaS company, a lot of the times you can find these people in professional databases like Apollo, like ZoomInfo, like Sales Navigator, like IntelliMatch. You can also understand their likely pain points and then craft relevant messaging. You can see their company, you can see what challenges they're facing, and you can speak directly to their needs. If you're targeting individual consumers, you don't have this context. Their email addresses aren't publicly listed, their job titles might not be relevant to your offer, and of course, their decision-making process is completely different. And if you do find consumer emails where it is gmail.coms, hotmail.coms, yahoo.coms, the personalization opportunities are often limited as well. And unfortunately, there are legal requirements that are much more strict. They are heavily regulated under laws like CAN-SPAM, GDPR, and various state privacy laws. So we want to stay as far away as possible from sending cold emails to those types of emails, those consumer emails. Sending emails to B2B companies and B2B emails has more lenient requirements because it is considered professional communication rather than just marketing to normal consumers. When you're reaching out to someone in their professional capacity about business solutions, the legal framework is a lot more permissive and it will allow you to get past certain strict laws. So if you're selling to somebody like a homeowner or individual consumers, you're trying to sell like a small, low ticket physical product, or anybody who isn't purchasing decisions for a specific business, cold email probably is not the right fit for you. So there are a few exceptions. One of my friends a couple years ago, he actually ended up sending cold emails to rich business owners, selling them a yacht. And it was a simple one sentence cold email, and it made him a lot of money. That's what I call a very unique situation, and that is, of course, an exception. But generally, cold email is going to be a B2B strategy. For your business, you need to be targeting another business, not a person. Another non-negotiable requirement for cold email is you need to have a high ticket offer. Cold email is a numbers game. It really is. The math only works if your product or service is expensive enough and has sufficient value. Even the best cold email campaigns in the world, and I speak on this from experience, they're typically going to see around 3 to 8% reply rates. Understanding this math is crucial for determining whether cold email makes sense for your specific business. So let's walk through the numbers really quickly. Let's say you send 1,000 emails and you get a 3% response rate. Boom, that's 30 replies from prospects. Of those 30 replies, maybe half of them might be a little bit interested, because the other half are going to say, hey, I'm not interested, get out of my inbox or remove me from your list. So let's say you have 15 potential prospects. If you're good at sales and you're good at your follow-ups, you might convert 30% of those leads into customers. Boom, that's 5 customers. But if your product is $500, you've generated $2,500 in revenue from about 1,000 emails. After factoring in the cost of data, which is about $100 to $200, your infrastructure cost, which is about the same, $100 to $200, and of course your time, which is extremely important, maybe takes 8 to 10 hours for campaign setup, response management, and sales calls. With all those numbers and your time factored in, you're probably breaking even. That's not a massive ROI, and cold email probably wouldn't be worth it at that point. That's not sustainable, and it certainly doesn't justify the effort or the costs to build and maintain a cold email system. But on the contrary, let's say your service, instead of it being 500, it was 5,000. And those same 5 customers generated $25,000 in revenue. Suddenly, your math makes sense and it works beautifully. And you have a highly profitable marketing channel that you can scale aggressively. This is why cold email works so well for anybody with a high ticket offer, whether that's agencies, consultants, done for you offers, high ticket SaaS companies, or just high value service providers that charge a lot of money that are targeting businesses. Now, this won't work if you were an e-commerce company trying to sell low ticket products through cold email. It's not worth it, and it really just doesn't make sense. Now, there is a psychological factor in play here. A lot of these decision makers are much more likely to respond to emails about high value and frankly expensive solutions because there are significant business decisions that warrant their personal attention. They're probably going to ignore an email that sounds like a $100 product that doesn't really solve a big problem. If it solves a small problem, they're not gonna be intrigued. But they might actually pay attention to emails about $10,000 solutions because the impact on their business could be substantial. Another non-negotiable for cold email is that you need to have extremely precise targeting. You need to be able to clearly define who your ideal customer is. You need to be able to find their contact information in professional databases. The more specific your ideal client profile, the better results you're gonna get. So let me give you an example. There's a good ideal client profile and then there's the bad ideal client profile. A good ideal client profile is marketing directors at B2B companies with 50 to 200 employees that are currently using HubSpot. And then bonus, let's say you wanna get even deeper, you say, hey, but they don't have a dedicated content marketing person on their team. If you wanna get that deep, I would recommend using clay.com, but now we'll just keep it simple with our normal ideal client profile. Now that is a specific enough search query that you can find these people in databases. You can understand their likely challenges, and then of course you can craft highly relevant messaging. You'll know that they're at companies of a certain size using a specific technology, which in this case is HubSpot, and then of course that they have a specific gap in their team that your service could fill. A bad example is just, hey, I target small business owners and help them with their marketing, right? Like that's so broad. And like what industries do you want to target? What size companies, what specific roles, what kind of marketing help you need to get more specific. So when your target market is that vague, your message will be vague too. There's no alternative, right? And of course, vague messages will not get responses. The specificity of your target market will directly correlate with your success rate with cold email. The more precisely you can define your ideal customer, the more relevant your messages will be, and the higher your response rates will climb. So here's another way to think about this. Your target market should be specific enough that you could walk into a room of these people and give them a presentation that will resonate with basically every single one of them. If you can't do that, your target market isn't specific enough to use cold email. And by the way, with these non-negotiable requirements, they're not really meant to discourage you. They're meant to set proper expectations and essentially help you understand whether cold email actually aligns with your goals, and more importantly, whether it aligns with your business model and whether it makes sense financially and with your time. If you meet all these criterias, then absolutely cold email will be absolutely transformational for your company. Before we dive into the technical setup of cold email, I want to show you what success looks like for businesses that are the right fit for cold email. So typically the businesses that excel with cold email are marketing agencies, PR firms, web development companies, design agencies, consulting firms, essentially anybody who has a high value service. A lot of the times, if it's a couple $1,000s a month, 5,000 is good. The more expensive, the better. And then of course you need to have clearly defined target markets, and you can clearly demonstrate clear ROI to your prospects. For example, if you're a marketing company, let's say you target VPs of marketing at B2B SaaS companies. Let's say you want them to be between $5 million and $50 million in annual revenue. Let's say they're spending about $20,000 a month on paid ads, but they don't have a dedicated marketing operations person inside of their company. This target market is specific enough to find in databases, and it's specific enough to create highly relevant content. If you're this agency, you can talk about marketing operations challenges that these VPs are currently facing, reference the paid advertising spend that they're already doing, and then of course position yourself as a solution to a known problem that you just found. Another example, let's say you're a project management software company. You might target operations directors at professional service firms with 20 to 100 employees. Let's say they're currently using Google Sheets or basic tools for project management, but they've of course grown beyond that point of what their tools can handle. Again, like this is so specific. This is more of an ideal customer situation rather than just a profile. It will let you find a relevant message effectively. Another example could be professional services. If you're a professional services company, you can use cold email to reach business decision makers who need your expertise. You can target accounting firms at a certain size. You can target law firms that are specializing in a specific type of law. You can target HR consultants. You can target financial advisors who are working with business owners that you want to work with. If you're a business attorney, you might target founders of venture-backed startups that have raised Series A in the last 6 months, and they need to implement proper legal structures at this growth stage. This is specific because it allows you to tailor your messaging to their legal challenges that, of course, Series A companies usually face. If you're a B2B equipment and supply company, you can find cold email more effective than traditional sales methods like cold call or ads because it allows you to reach decision makers directly rather than going through the purchasing departments. Let's say, for example, you're a commercial kitchen equipment company. You might target restaurant owners who have opened their second location in the last 12 months. And maybe they're looking to standardize their kitchen equipment across their locations. Like this is so specific, and if your ideal client profile or ideal client situation is this specific, it's a lot easier to tailor your messaging. And by the way, these are very specific lists. If you want me to refer you to an agency who can build these type of lists for you, just DM me on LinkedIn, Cody Carnes, and I will connect you. And even high value knowledge services can use cold email effectively, especially when you can target specific industries or roles. If you're targeting business coaches, executive consultants, or anybody selling, let's say courses or high value knowledge services, that will work for you. An executive coach might target CEOs of private equity backed companies who have been in their role for less than 18 months, and maybe they're managing their first growth initiative. The more specific you are, the better lists you can build and the better the messaging will be, the more calls you're gonna book. So now that we've covered why cold email is so powerful in 2025, and we've covered if cold email will work for your specific business, let's dive into building the foundation that everything cold email related depends on. Chapter 3, building your cold email infrastructure. And then at the end of this chapter, we have the underground deliverability hacks that I recommend that of course Gmail does not want you to know. So when it comes to cold email infrastructure, this is where most beginners either succeed or fail with cold email. And a lot of the times they don't even realize it. The infrastructure setup will determine whether your message, whether your email will even reach the inbox, or whether it will get filtered into spam before your prospects will even see it. If you get this right, everything else becomes easier. If you get it wrong, even the best copy, the best offer, the best list in the world won't save you because nobody's gonna read your email. I've seen businesses spend months perfecting their email copy only to discover that 80% of their emails are going to spam. That is a lot more common than you think. The reason for that is because they skipped this one crucial step on infrastructure. I've also seen businesses with pretty crap copy. They're reaching 8 to 10% plus response rates because their infrastructure is so perfectly configured. So TLDR, do not let infrastructure be the reason your campaigns fail. So let's quickly understand the domain strategy and why your main domain is off of limits for cold email. This is a pretty simple rule of cold email, but I want to cover it anyway. Never send cold emails from your main business domain. I cannot stress that enough. And I've seen way too many companies, even Fortune 1000 companies, learn this the hard and expensive way. So here's what happens when you send cold emails from your main domain. Even if only a small percentage of recipients mark your emails as spam, because again, it's a cold email. And by the way, this does happen no matter what. You will get marked as spam if you're sending cold emails. But the goal is of course to minimize that as much as possible. When you're sending from your main domain and you get marked as spam, that will damage your domain reputation with these email service providers like Gmail and like Outlook. Once your domain reputation is damaged, all of your emails that you're sending from that domain start having deliverability problems. This means that customer communication, support emails, order confirmations, password resets, invoices, or internal team emails and internal communication are all going to start going to spam. And I've seen businesses essentially break their entire email communication system by sending these cold emails from their main domain. So that's what we don't want to do, right? What we do want to do is create what we call secondary domains. You can call them burner or standing domains. These are domains that are similar enough to your main domain that your prospects will recognize your brand, but different enough that any reputation issues that you have with this secondary domain will not affect your main domain. So let's say, for example, your company is salesforce.com. You want to go to your domain provider and buy go salesforce.com, try salesforce.com, for salesforce.com. Once you get to that point, just buy as many of these secondary domains as you can. And creating these types of domains is both an art and a science. You want them to be recognizable, but you also want them to be separate from your main domain. Let's say, for example, that your main domain is marketingpro.com. You can set up a lot of these domains right here, like mymarketingpro.com, hellomarketingpro.com, trymarketingpro.com. You could also do it at the end as well. Marketing Pro Services, Marketing Pro Agency. Again, you get the point. When somebody receives an email from your name at these secondary domains, they should immediately understand that this is related to your main domain right here. But it should not feel spammy or suspicious. Don't use anything unrelated to your services or to your company. Don't use any sort of endings of the domain like TK, ML, GA. Don't use hyphens, don't use underscores, and never misspell your brand name. After you do end up finding the right domains, you want to forward them and make this as seamless as possible. So this is what we call domain forwarding. If somebody were to type in, getmarketingpro.com on the web browser, which is what a lot of these prospects are going to do after they copy it from email, we want getmarketingpro.com to forward to marketingpro.com seamlessly, because they're going to type you in and they just want to see that you're a real person. They want to see that you're a real company and they're curious about you, right? We don't want them going to an error page or a parking page. We want them to immediately redirect to your main website. And by the way, this is so easy to set up. A lot of your main domain registrars make this super simple to do. You simply configure the forwarding in your domain management panel to redirect all of your traffic from your burner domain to your main domain. And there are a few requirements: setting up a 301 redirect, testing this by essentially just putting getmarketingpro.com right here and clicking enter. If it does go to your main website, boom, you did it right. If it didn't, then you need to fix that. And this isn't very applicable at this stage right now, but as you do get more sophisticated with cold email, instead of actually having your main website, you would set up a separate landing page strictly for cold email. So it could be a free trial funnel, it could be a contact page, or it could just be, essentially a normal funnel, a normal landing page. But like I said, that's pretty complex. I would just keep it simple with your main website for now, because a lot of the times you're not really going to get that much traffic unless you're sending hundreds of thousands of cold emails every single month. So you're probably wondering, how many domains do I actually need? Now, this is a very common question that I usually get, and it does depend on your specific volume goals. So here's the math that we're going to cover. Each domain that you buy will be able to handle around 2 to 3 email accounts. Each email account should send no more than 20 cold emails a day. So every domain you have can send around 40 to 60 cold emails a day, max. If you want to send 1,000 cold emails a day, you're going to need around 15 to 20 domains. If you want to send 10,000 cold emails per day, you're going to need around 150 to 200 domains. If you're starting out with cold email, I would plan on just getting around 5 to 10 domains initially. And then if you want to scale the volume, do that. Do that in the future, but now just keep it as simple as possible. So these 5 to 10 domains are going to give you the capacity to send around 250 to 750 cold emails per day. And again, that's plenty of volume to test your messaging and prove your concept before you actually start spending more money to send more cold emails. These limits per domain matter because a lot of the email service providers, your Googles, your Zohos, your Microsofts, they will monitor your sending patterns from each specific domain. So if a single domain that you just bought 2 weeks ago starts suddenly sending thousands of cold emails per day, it looks a little suspicious and it will likely be flagged as spam. So by spreading your volume out across multiple domains, you maintain more natural sending patterns, you protect your main domain if one of your secondary domains gets burned, and you can simply stop using a problematic domain if you're having problems with it and then just go to a next one. You can throw that one away. In terms of actually buying these domains, my biggest recommendation is using porkbun.com. You could also use something like Ionis, or you can use something like GoDaddy or Namecheap. But my 4 recommended are in this order: Porkbun, Ionis, Namecheap, and then GoDaddy. I would just keep it simple with these 4 registrars, and I would not trust any small or unknown registrars. Any registrar that seems to specialize in privacy or anonymity, definitely ignore them and do not buy from them. So once you've purchased these domains, you need to set up what we call DNS records. This is the most technical part of this process. It is a little boring to set up, and I promise you will be done in a couple of minutes, but it is absolutely critical for deliverability. So these essentially tell your Google and Microsoft that you're a legitimate sender and that your emails should be trusted. DNS stands for Domain Name System, and it is essentially the address book of the internet. When you set these up properly, you're telling email service providers exactly how your emails should be handled and verified. And by the way, if you want a free SOP, which is a standard operating procedure, a step-by-step list of how I set up these emails, click the link in the description below. All right, so there are 3 essential DNS records that you need for every single domain that you buy. The first one is called SPF. A basic SPF record looks like this right here. Without setting this up, many of these email service providers will reject your emails automatically or mark them as suspicious. And of course, if you guys want to read through all this document, it's going to be in the description below. The second one is called a DKIM record. This essentially provides a digital signature that proves that your emails haven't been tampered with in transit to your prospect's inbox. It's like a wax seal that shows the email is authentic and hasn't been modified. The third is called a DMARC record. This tells email service providers what to do if an email fails SPF or DKIM checks. This is your policy for handling potentially fraudulent emails from your domain. Here's where most beginners mess up and they make critical mistakes with their DNS setup. A lot of the times they might skip the records entirely, they might set them up incorrectly, or they might just look on Google and copy generic templates without actually understanding what they're doing. In terms of actually setting up your email accounts, there are 2 main options. The first one is Google Workspace. Of course, everybody knows this. This is probably the most popular choice. Excellent deliverability to other Gmail accounts, which does represent a large percentage of business emails. Very familiar interface, good integration with most cold email tools. And of course, you can have the app on your phone. Very easy and very simple. A couple of drawbacks are that they are a bit more expensive than alternatives. They might change their policies occasionally that can affect cold emailers, which is the biggest downside. The second option is Outlook or Microsoft. This has very good deliverability to other Outlook, and it also has very good deliverability to enterprise companies. So if a lot of your target market is Outlook or enterprise accounts, this is probably going to be your best bet. This is usually less expensive than Google Workspace, and it is good for businesses who are already in the Microsoft ecosystem. A couple of disadvantages are that it is a slightly more complex setup. The interface is not as easy as Gmail, and maybe if you want to connect a couple of cold email tools, Outlook is not as supported as Gmail usually is. In terms of your email account setup, so let's say for example, you bought getmarketingpro.com, you want to set up either 2 or 3 email accounts per domain. So the first one could be your first name at getmarketingpro.com. The second one could be your first name and then your last name at getmarketingpro.com. And then your third, be creative, you can do whatever you want. You can use the initials. Full email address is the letter J and then the letter C at getmarketingpro.com. Always use real names. Don't use hello at XYZ or sales at. Just always keep it simple, or first name or just your initials. Once you actually do set up these email accounts, what we want to do now is put them in the warming up process. This is something that will make or break your cold email success. You cannot start sending cold emails directly after you bought email accounts. Instead, you need to warm up your email accounts by gradually building their sender reputation. This usually takes around 14 days. On the maximum end, this will take around 30, but this is absolutely essential for cold email success. Think of warming up as the process of gradually increasing the sending volume from new email accounts while always ensuring extremely high engagement rates. So during this process, your email accounts are going to send and receive emails from other email accounts in that warm-up pool. This is going to build your reputation and build positive sending signals. Think of this like building a credit score. When you're young and have 0 credit history, the odds of you getting approved for a large loan are slim to none. But if you start small, you make your payments on time, you're going to gradually build your credit history. Eventually, you're going to be able to qualify for very large loans. Cold email warm-up is the same process. Here's the timeline that I recommend. So week 1, send around 2 to 5 emails per day per email account. Week 2, send 5 to 10 emails a day. Week 3, send 10 to 20 emails a day. And then week 4, usually send around 20 to 30 emails per day. I would start sending after week 2, but of course, you always want to keep your warm up on while you are sending cold emails. Here's a few critical non-negotiable rules that you need to follow. So never send cold emails during the first 14 days. Don't skip the warm up process. Don't just think, hey, I just bought these email accounts. They look healthy. I'm going to start sending right away. Don't do that. 14 days of warm up. Number 3, you need to keep warm up on while you are still sending cold emails. And then number 4, monitor your warming performance. This is where the right tools become absolutely critical. The 2 tools that I would recommend is instantly.ai is the easiest one to use. Smartly.ai is going to be the second easiest. And then the third is called emailbison.com. This is for more sophisticated cold emailers, but again, it's still a very strong sending and warm-up tool that you could use. So earlier in the video, I promised you a bonus, the underground deliverability hacks that we can use that Gmail employees don't want us to know. Here are a couple of those right now. The first one is using a company called skipwarmup.com. What we're essentially going to be doing is buying aged domains. A big factor with cold email deliverability, especially in 2025, is the age of your domains. So there's 2 scenarios. Scenario number 1 is you can spend $12 a year and buy a fresh domain. A fresh.com, good to go. The downside of this is that it needs a lot of time to warm up. And if Google sees like, hey, this domain was just purchased in the last 7 days, maybe that's a sign that you're sending cold emails, or that's a sign that you're a spammer. That's a sign that you're just your domain is young. Same thing that I mentioned earlier with the credit. If you have a low credit score, if you have a new credit, if you're a young person with credit, maybe you're not as trusted as a 60-year-old with a perfect 800 score. Alternatively, you can use a company like skipwarmup.com and you can buy aged domains from them. This is going to be, and I'm not kidding, probably a 50x boost in your deliverability, because Google is going to see like, hey, this domain is 3 months old, 3 years old. Some of them are 10 years old, and it shows Google and Microsoft, these guys are worth trusting because they have a good credit score. So the second hack that I recommend doing is using a spam checker. So I always use this one. It's mailmeteor.com/spam checker. And right here, for example, what I would do is I would put in the copy that I'm sending in my emails. And let's say this was my copy. Right here, this spam checker is going to see what words are we using that might get flagged as spam through Google and Microsoft's algorithm. So right here, we might need to change financial to something else. We're going to need to change this because it's either showing too much urgency, it's too shady, you're overpromising, it's unnatural. So right here, this overall score is about a 57, which is very poor. So let's say we did remove these spam words and we made them, either we replaced them or we removed them altogether. Our goal for our score is to get it to about a great overall score, which is absolutely perfect. This is what I would recommend doing before you ever start sending your cold emails. Make sure that your overall score is great so you're not actually being pushed into the spam folder, because the words that you use in the emails is just as important as your infrastructure. Number 3 is always keeping a very low bounce rate. I always use Findymail.com, been using them since 2022. I'm always going to stay below a 3% bounce rate. Most campaigns are going to die that you send due to bounce related spam flag issues. Findymail is going to guarantee lower than a 3 to 5% bounce rate because of the real-time validation that it does. The 4th bonus is randomizing your volume daily per inbox. So never send the same exact number of emails every single day. So if you have one inbox, don't send 21 emails a day for the next 60 days, right? You want to randomize that as much as possible because you want to act like a human. They're going to be able to spot that pattern if you don't. So I would recommend varying between either 10 to 20 or 15 to 25 emails a day inside of your sending tool. In instantly.ai, you could set up your daily ramp ups and then randomize volume in the campaign settings. It's very easy to do. And then the 5th and final bonus for the deliverability hacks is setting up spin tags. So what I mean by spin tags is essentially just varying your words. So if you were to send 3 different cold emails, you want one of them to say hi first name, you want the other one to say hey first name, and then you want the third one to say hello first name. That's just one very small example. But my point is, you're sending a lot of cold emails to different people. You want to send different messaging to each of them. You can do that with the greeting. You can do that with essentially every part of your cold email. Try to include 3 to 4 different variations of messaging. And what I mean by messaging is stuff like this, right? Just different words here and there, different phrases. You want each email to be unique. That's why spin tags is so important. It's essentially going to avoid duplicate content because the spam filters do track that pretty heavily. And for the sixth, this is a bonus to the bonus. I actually just added this recently. More positive replies that you get on cold email, the better your reputation is going to be. So I always recommend using soft call to actions. We're going to talk about that in the next section of cold email messaging. The softer the call to action, the more positive replies that you're going to get. So what I mean by that, if you said, hey, blah, 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 your whole email, then the call to action is let's book in a 45-minute discovery call versus, hey, can I send you a 60-second Loom video? This one's going to get a lot more positive responses because it's easier to say yes to. The more positive replies you get, Google is going to see, hey, this guy's having natural, positive conversations with people that he's emailing. That's a much better position to be in. So TLDR, if your emails are spin taxed, you do the spin tax, which is changing up words so each email is unique. You send at varied randomized volume. You always have below a 3% bounce rate, and you always have warm replies coming in. You will have extremely incredible deliverability, and your inbox placement scores will be above 95% every single time. Chapter 4, high quality data. And we're going to talk about the one sentence AI prompt that will fill your pipeline with qualified leads. So now we've come to what might be the most critical aspect of your entire cold email operation, the quality of your prospect data. I've seen businesses with perfect infrastructure, incredible copy, very sophisticated automations fail completely because they were sending to bad emails. On the contrary, I've seen other businesses with pretty mediocre systems and everything else that I mentioned achieve incredible results because they had access to untapped, high quality prospect data. Now here's a truth that most beginners don't know. Your feedback loops for cold email are directly proportional to your data quality. Everything else, your copy, your offer, your follow-up sequences, they only matter if you're reaching the right people. Before we dive into data solutions, you need to understand the scope of the data quality problem in cold email. Most businesses are, it's not their fault, but they're sabotaging their campaigns from the very beginning by using cheap, low quality data sources. And when you use low quality data sources, several things are going to happen that will destroy your campaign performance. You're going to get a lot of bounces. So invalid email addresses will bounce back to your server. And if you get more than a 5% bounce rate, email service providers will start flagging you as a spammer. Another one is that outdated or inaccurate information means that you're emailing people who aren't actually in your target market. They don't have valid contact information. That's going to lead to poor response rates and spam complaints. And every invalid email you send to is going to waste your sending capacity, your time, and potentially damage your reputation. When you email irrelevant prospects or ones with invalid email addresses, people are going to mark you as spam. Google's going to see that, and that's going to hurt your deliverability for all future campaigns. So here's the traditional approach that most people do and why it's broken. Firstly, a lot of beginners try to buy lists from very cheap providers or freelancers, often paying anywhere between $50 to $100 for thousands of verified email addresses, right? The problem is that this data is cheap for a reason. The providers that you're buying from, a lot of the times, and I've done this, I've paid so many of them because I've seen this first experience, they're often scraping outdated information from 2, 3, 4 years ago. They're using automated verification that doesn't really solve a problem and doesn't do a good job verifying. They sell the same exact lists to a ton of customers. And when you're buying data for pennies per contact, you should immediately question, like, how is this so cheap? How is it collected? How is it verified? Because a lot of the times you're not going to like the answer. The next thing that most beginners do is they import their lead list without additional verification. So they take their quote unquote verified lead list, they import it directly into their sending tool, Instantly, Lemlist, Smart Lead, without actually verifying it again. The problem here is that a lot of these email addresses are constantly changing. Even verified data can be 20 to 30% invalid after 6, 7, 8 months of collection. Because people change jobs, companies change their email systems, and email addresses that were valid a couple months ago when the data was collected might be invalid now by the time they sell it to you. So thirdly, this isn't really about the actual data side, but this is more about the segmentation of the data. So beginners like to send to everybody without actually segmenting their list. So they send the same generic message to every single person on their list, regardless of their job title, their industry, their location, their company size. This broad approach ignores the fact that different prospects have different needs, challenges, and decision-making processes. Generic messages that you send to poorly targeted audiences will get you poor response rates. and you're gonna get high spam complaints as well. So let's talk about what high quality data actually looks like. Before we talk about where to get good data and how we're gonna scrape the data, you need to understand how do we define high quality data. The email addresses need to be verified in real time, not a static database, real-time live verification, not just checked against known invalid patterns, which a lot of companies do. The phone numbers need to be current and verified. The LinkedIn profiles need to be active and up to date. For company information, you want accurate company size, you want the revenue data, because you want to understand if they're a good fit for your company. You want to see their tech stack that allows you to do more relevant messaging and targeting. You want to just have more information on them, the more company news, more developments. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide more personalization opportunities. So now that we've defined what high quality data is, let's go over your options for actually scraping this data. So here are a couple common data sources that you've probably heard of, and we're going to evaluate them. So the first one is called Apollo.io. This is probably the most popular data provider. And while they do have a large database, there are a ton of significant limitations that you need to understand. On the upside, they do have a large database with millions of contacts. They have very strong search and filtering capabilities. They have pretty reasonable pricing for basic plans, and their interface is pretty easy to learn. However, they do have a lot of limitations as well. The data accuracy varies significantly, and if you've used Apollo, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The email addresses are outdated or incorrect, which will hurt your deliverability and waste your time. If you build a lead list from Apollo, I can basically guarantee that around 20 to 30% of those emails will bounce because they're invalid. The reason this happens is because their verification is just so basic, and it misses many invalid email addresses that cause bounces. They have a limited amount of real-time data updates, so for that reason, their database is very static, and it's not dynamic, it's kind of stale. The personalization data is often superficial and doesn't really provide depth needed for scoring your accounts, and then of course, compelling personalization outreach. And most importantly, their export limits on most plans force you to either do manual work, manual scraping and copying and pasting leads, or you have to pay premium prices that can make the total cost much higher than you initially anticipated. The second option is ZoomInfo. And now this is a pretty premium data provider, very expensive, but it generally has pretty high accuracy. But of course, this also does with significant limitations as well for cold emailers. A couple benefits are that it has high quality data. That is a lot better than cheaper alternatives, good company information, strong search capabilities, and then regular data updates, which is a big one, which Apollo doesn't have. The downside is that it is extremely expensive, often $40,000 plus a year for meaningful access. They have export limitations that make scaling your volume difficult. There's not really an integration with tools like Instantly or SmartLead, so you have to export and import leads manually. And even with their higher accuracy than the other ones, they still require additional verification afterwards because the bounce rates are still so high. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is going to be the third one. This provides access to LinkedIn.com, their database of prospects, which is generally accurate because people maintain their own profiles. It's very live and it's very up to date. The advantages include high data accuracy for basic contact information. You can see their current job, and you can integrate with LinkedIn messaging capabilities. The major limitations include you can't actually find their emails and you can't validate their emails. You have to use separate tools. The second is, of course, their export limitation. This is a big headache for basically everybody in the world. They have a lot of restrictions that make it very difficult to build large lead lists. It's expensive for the limited amount of data that you get. And then, of course, like I said, you have to use different tools to find and verify their email and mobile numbers. Now, the problem with these fragmented data solutions is that they only solve part of the problem. Even if you choose the best provider, you still need to export data from their platform, maybe manually import and export CSVs, import into a verification software so you can verify the emails, format this data and clean it, and then import it into your sending software, and then just hope that everything integrates properly. This is very time consuming, and it probably takes a full-time employee. It's very error prone and often results in data quality issues that will hurt your campaign performance. And of course, you're paying for multiple tools, you're managing multiple vendor relationships, which does add cost and complexity to your operations. Each step in this process introduces potential problems and delays that can impact your campaign performance. So here's the solution that I use, and here's the solution that also is the bonus that I mentioned earlier. The exact one-sentence AI prompt that builds my entire lead list, pre-qualifies each prospect, and finds a verified email and phone number. That solves every single one of these issues that we mentioned above. This is what we call an integrated data solution. This represents a fundamentally better approach to cold email data sourcing because it is specifically for cold email. Instead of forcing you to piece together data from 4 or 5 different tools, manage workflows, and just be inside of CSVs all day, every day, integrated solutions handle every single aspect of the data quality within a single platform. So this is why I use a tool called IntelliMatch. Like I said earlier, you can essentially just put in a 1-sentence prompt. It is not only going to build your company list, it's not only going to find the job titles that you need, it's going to find their email, verify their email as well, and then also you can ask them to give them a mobile number as well. So let's say, for example, I want to target Google ad agencies in the US. Let's just say 1 to 10 employee size. Once we click search right here, a lot of the times it's going to take around 2 minutes. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to click on their websites to actually QA, which is quality assure. We want to do a quick quality assurance check to make sure that these actually are Google ad agencies. So we'll click this one, we'll click this one, and then we'll just randomly click this one as well. We just want to make sure that IntelliMatch is doing its job. So it looks like right here, this person does do Google ads. I guess Google search and Google ads are the same thing. So that is the first one. Boom, Google ads done. So the next one actually says Google ads right here. So we know that IntelliMatch did its job. The next one is going to be Monster PPC. It looks like they do Google ads as well, Google spend, and then pay-per-click Google ads. Now that we know that IntelliMatch did a great job finding the companies, we need to click export results. So in terms of the number of companies, let's just quickly say 150 right here. And then there's 2 options. As of right now, we can either go more broad or more targeted. We want to spend the least amount of credits right now because we're still doing a test. So we're just going to click broad and then we're going to click next. I want to target the CEO. I want to target the founder. Let's target the owner as well, and then the president, and maybe we can target partners as well. Inside of IntelliMatch, we also have Find Email built in, so we're going to be able to find and validate their email address. Let's just say, for example, we want to find the phone numbers as well, and then we will title this. Now that we're done filling out all of this information, let's go to next, and then just click Start Export. So while this enrichment is in progress, I want to quickly talk about what makes this solution so different. Like I said, not only is IntelliMatch going to find the companies, it's going to find the right person, it's going to find their email, and it's going to validate their email. And then of course it can get you their mobile number as well. The big moat for something like this is it doesn't require different tools, and the email is verified in real time. So the verification process inside of this product is very complex. If I could just simply put it into 4 lines, the first one is that there's a syntax verification that ensures proper email format. That's the first layer. The second layer is we actually verify the domain to confirm if the domain exists and accepts mail. The third is to verify if the mailbox exists to confirm the specific email address if it exists. And then the fourth one is risk assessment to identify potentially problematic email addresses. That's a big moat for a product like this, but also, like I said earlier, it's an integrated data solution. So it essentially does everything all at once, done for you in about 5 to 10 seconds. Like you saw how fast it was for me to do that. And this product is only going to get better. This represents a massive breakthrough in intelligent prospecting. So instead of it just giving you basic contact information, you have to go from tool to different tool to CSV and then export and then play a little bit of gymnastics. It is going to do all that into one. Your prospect data is going to flow seamlessly into your campaigns, and all the verification and enrichment already happened automatically. So let's go back to our results and see if it's done. Boom, it is. So we will quickly click download results. And I want to show you an example of what the CSV looks like as of right now, as of June 2025. Here's what a sample CSV looks like. You're going to have the company name, the domain. You're going to have their exact employee size, which is exactly what we asked. We're going to be able to find all the job titles that we mentioned. And then of course, what Findymail does as well is it's going to try and find and validate their email as well. Here's what that information looks like right here. So out of that whole list, it seems like we have around 100 very good prospects that we could either email or call. And that is the power of AI. And most importantly, IntelliMatch's data quality will directly impact your deliverability and send a reputation in a positive way. When you consistently send emails to verified, engaged prospects who match your exact ideal customer profile, you're going to get better response rates and you're going to get fewer spam complaints. This is going to create a massive positive feedback loop that will improve your deliverability over time. So let's quickly go over how to build your ideal customer profile, because I've talked about that a couple of times and I want to clearly define it to show you guys how to do it for yourself. So you need to have a very strong understanding of who your customer is. Like I said earlier, you can't just target every single small business owner. You need to get more specific. The company size matters. The industry classification needs to be specific enough. Instead of you just saying, hey, I target all technology companies, say, hey, I target B2B SaaS companies. So business to business, software as a service companies. And then if you want to get even more specific, say that serve enterprise companies or fintech startups that have just raised their Series A funding. The more specific you get, the better. Another way to define your ideal client profile is seeing what sort of technology they have and what sort of technology they're using. You can do this inside of basically every single data source except LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So now that we've discussed how to scrape lead lists and how to define great data, where to get your great data, now we're going to go into the next chapter. And in this next chapter, even if you have the most perfect data, your campaigns will still fail if you don't actually understand how to craft messages that will convert high quality leads, high quality prospects that we just grabbed into customers. So let's go over that. Chapter 5, crafting your cold email strategy and your messaging. So now we reach the part of cold email that most people focus on exclusively, the actual messages that you're sending. Now, while messaging is important, as we've established, it's only effective if you've already built a very solid email infrastructure and you've built solid data systems. When you have those two things in place, great messaging will multiply your results. The difference between cold email copy that's good and cold email copy that's great isn't usually about clever wordplay or persuasive psychological techniques. It's about understanding your prospect's world so deeply that your messages feel like it was written specifically for them and specifically from you who understands their problem. How well can you articulate the problem that they're going through? So before we dive into very specific copywriting techniques, understand what's happening in your prospect's mind, especially when they receive your email. So this context that I'm about to share will improve every aspect of your messaging because it is essentially the base layer. When a prospect receives your cold email, they're not in a buying mindset. They're in their inbox trying to talk with their team, trying to manage their business, communicate with customers, get their daily tasks done. Your email is an interruption. And like all interruptions, it needs to quickly justify why it's there or it will be deleted. So the prospect has 3 things going on in their brain that you need to answer within seconds. Number 1, is this relevant to me and my business? If they can't immediately see how your email relates to their world, they'll delete it. Number 2, is this person sending me an email credible? Are they worth listening to? If you don't quickly establish credibility, they're going to assume you're just another vendor and they're going to ignore you. Number 3, what is the cost of engaging with this email? If engaging with your email seems like it will take a significant amount of time or effort without a clear ROI, they're not going to respond. So your job is to answer those 3 things positively within the first few seconds of your email, because your email is a reading experience at this point. Your subject line, your preview line, your offer, your call to action, they all need to work together to establish relevance, credibility, and very low friction engagement. The most successful cold emails feel like they're from a peer or a friend or an advisor rather than just a vendor trying to sell you. They focus on the prospect rather than themselves, and they provide value or an insight before asking for anything in return. Again, like I went back to before, the quick 60-second Loom video of value. You have to make engaging with you feel easy and low risk rather than like committing to another company's sales process, which every single person hates. So let's build your cold email framework. An effective cold email follows a consistent framework that addresses the prospect's psychological needs while moving them closer towards engagement with you. This framework isn't rigid, it's not like a template. You'll adapt it based on your offer and based off of your audience, but it will provide a strong, proven structure for creating a strong message. So the first is your subject line. Think of your subject line and your preview line as the thumbnail of your email. Same way you made a very strong YouTube video. If nobody actually clicks on your title or your thumbnail, nobody's gonna see how great your YouTube video is. So getting this right is a massive lever. The most effective subject lines are typically all lowercase. They're concise, straight to the point, around 3 to 7 words. They're creating curiosity, and the one thing that they aren't being is salesy. So there's 3 types of subject lines that you can use. The first one is a question-based subject line. Something like thoughts on your Q3 results or quick question about your expansion. And they feel like general inquiries rather than just sales pitches. It's like a colleague is sending in a text, right? Rather than saying, hey, this is a salesy cold email and I want to sell you something. This is much better and it is a lot more engaging. The second type of subject line is a reference-based subject line. This is essentially a little bit like a compliment, but you're just showing them that, hey, I saw you somewhere. I wanted to reference that I did my research. Something like, hey, saw your TechCrunch feature, or something like noticed your new Chicago office. This establishes that you're just paying attention to them and their business. The third type of subject line is a problem-focused subject line. So problems that you solve. An example could be CRM data accuracy ? Or scaling your customer success team. If this is a problem that they're going through, it is likely going to resonate with them because it's relevant. The key for you specifically is testing as many different approaches as possible. Try these three versus each other and see which one converts the best for you. Preview lines need to demonstrate a couple of things. The first one is that the email is specifically for them. A bonus if you can demonstrate that you've done your homework. But the main thing is that it creates a bridge to your offer/value proposition as naturally as possible. So a couple of examples of openers, and this first one is my favorite. Hey John, with all the new privacy regulations affecting fintech companies, comma, and then either end that sentence with a question that makes them think about their current situation, or bridge it to your value proposition or your offer. Another example could be, hey John, given the challenges in talent acquisition for scaling startups like yourself, comma, and then again, either a question or bridge into your value proposition. That first sentence, if it is relevant to them, it's going to show that you understand the broader context of their specific business. The second one is a problem recognition preview line/opener. Hey Joe, managing customer data across multiple systems is always challenging, comma, and then either bridge into some sort of case study, some sort of social proof. You could say, if they're a SaaS company, you say, we help other SaaS companies solve this problem XYZ, and then use a case study that you have. Another one could be, hey John, scaling customer success with your growth rate must be interesting, and then bridge into your value proposition. This shows a lot of empathy and understanding if it is a problem that they're going through. The third and final type of opener is mentioning recent activity. So if they were in a recent presentation or if they just had a recent blog post, you're mentioning that in the preview line of the email. So, hey John, enjoyed your presentation at SaaSTR, or hey John, your recent blog post about customer retention resonated with me. Just show them that you're engaged with their content, but realistically, I would just use these first two as much as possible because this does require quite a bit of time to do that research. And if you want to send a lot of cold emails without spending 8 hours a day doing research, I would definitely recommend using these top two. So now that we have our subject line, we have our preview line, let's go into actually crafting a very strong value proposition, aka the twisted psychology trick that makes prospects desperate to reply to your cold emails. Here's a couple of key ingredients that does make them reply. Number one, you need to have a clear outcome. And what that means is essentially what specific result are you promising to this prospect? An example is, let's say you offer LinkedIn content services. Instead of just saying, hey, we'll write LinkedIn content for you, a result that you're promising is, hey, we will write you 3 LinkedIn carousels that will double your engagement. The second element is that you need to be specific. So what's the format? What's the timeline? What is the quantity, right? So we'll write you 3 carousels that will double your engagement and deliver it in 7 days. Risk reversal is the next one, and that is probably the most important when it comes to cold email. You need to remember that these people have no idea who you are 90% of the time. So the skepticism level is at an all-time high. So you need to make it safe and easy for them to engage with you. So we'll write you 3 carousels that double your engagement. We'll deliver it in 7 days, or you don't pay. Again, since skepticism is at an all-time high, why should they believe you? If you have social proof, like your service has been used by 50 other SaaS founders, use that inside of the cold email. And then this is the last and final ingredient of a great offer, differentiation. Why is your offer, your service, better and different than your competitors? An example could be the whole offer that we're saying, we'll write you 3 carousels to double your engagement, delivered in 7 days, or you don't pay. 50 other SaaS founders have used this exact service, and all you have to do is send 1 5-minute voice note. There's no revisions needed. And by the way, with this offer example that I gave you guys, this isn't just theory. I actually ended up using this for my wife and her LinkedIn service. So we're gonna go over it to Instantly real quick. I wanted to show you guys this campaign, and to be fair, like this is the exact same script that I did show you guys in that exact offer / value proposition. We sent around 806 cold emails and we got 12 opportunities. The reply rate is pretty decent, but again, for right now, let's just focus on the fact that out of 800 emails sent, we got around 12 opportunities. And we still have a lot more emails to go. Only 21 of these leads have been completed. So that is a great offer to run if you are selling LinkedIn growth. So let's start working on your offer right now. So for you guys to actually understand the theory behind offers, you need to answer 3 questions fast in your prospect's mind. Number 1, what do I get, right? Like they're busy CEOs, founders, VP of marketings at big companies. They don't have a lot of time to figure out what exactly they're getting from your email or from your offer. You need to make that as clear as possible for them. Number 2 is why should they believe you? Again, if you either have a guarantee or a better option is any sort of social proof or case studies. You just need to share that you know what you're doing. The third is how easy is it to get started? How easy is it to reply to your email? How easy is it to get your cold email ready offer? For example, right here, all you have to do to get 3 carousels that will double your engagement that has been used by 50+ SaaS founders, send a voice note. That is the easiest thing you could possibly do, and that's why we put this into that offer. Another example, if you set up custom dashboards for companies, instead of just saying, we build custom dashboards to improve efficiency, like that's so vague. There's not really a direct outcome. There's no sort of urgency. A very strong offer would be, we will build you a custom sales dashboard that will cut your reporting time by over 70%. And we'll deliver it in the next 7 days, or it is completely free. So this has a clear outcome. It's specific, it's timely, it has a risk reversal as well. And also it implies urgency in 7 days. Your value proposition is the main reason why you're reaching out. Like, why exactly are you reaching out to them specifically? Like, what problem can you solve? What insane outcome can you generate for them? This is not about a product or a service. This is about an outcome or a massive benefit or a massive problem that you solve. So remember, with your offers, with your value props, think outcome, not features. A quick example for that, just to drive my point home, is we help B2B SaaS companies reduce churn by 40% in 30 days. That's a lot better than saying we provide customer success automation software, right? Like, see how big of a difference that is? Specificity makes your value proposition. The more specific you can get based off your social proof, based off your offer, the better it's going to convert. Again, to quickly summarize how to write a high impact offer that does get replies, answer 3 questions. What's in it for them? Why should they care? And why should they act now? Focus on outcomes, not features. Be as specific as possible. And of course, make it relevant. Speak directly to their current situation or their current priority. If they're scaling fast, if you can see that their headcount has gone from 5 to 50 in the last 9 months, mention speed, mention hiring, mention onboarding. If you see that they're kind of, losing a lot of employees, maybe they're cutting tech costs, mention efficiency or savings. If you see that they're trying to build authority, they're trying to start a personal brand or a YouTube channel, mention engagement or brand growth. Try to be as specific as possible. Also give them a reason why they should act now. So something like, with Q4 planning starting soon, ... and then get into your pitch, or before new LinkedIn algorithm changes take effect, and then push into your LinkedIn content offer. Number 5 is showing the cost of doing nothing. This isn't as important, but it still could be useful. Companies that skip CRM cleanup typically see 25% higher bounces and lose leads before they even reply. So the first 4 are incredible. This one is just kind of like a bonus one. You don't have to follow this one if you don't want to. Now, we've mentioned social proof and case studies a couple times over the last few minutes, but we didn't actually define what I mean by that and how to actually create those 1-sentence case studies. This is essentially just proving that you can deliver on your cold email ready offer / value proposition, right? You're just providing evidence. If you have case studies like, we helped a similar B2B SaaS company like yours reduce their
customer acquisition cost from X to Y in the last 6 months. Like that is a very quantifiable case study. That is incredible. And a lot of the times with your case studies, you can turn them into very simple one-sentence case studies. You can either put this in the middle of the cold email or you can put it in the PS line. Another one is just social proof. So something like companies like Slack, Zoom, and HubSpot use our platform to do XYZ, to solve XYZ problem. That's massive social proof, and that is a massive moat. Another one could be thought leadership. If you don't actually have case studies or social proof, one thing you can do is a thought leadership proof point. So this establishes credibility if it is relevant to the prospect's challenges. So you could say something like, I recently published research on scaling customer success teams for e-commerce stores. Would you like to take a look? This is going to position you as an expert rather than just a vendor. So the key is making your credibility element, whether that is thought leadership, case studies, or social proof, you need to make it relevant to the specific prospect and their situation. So it will be different if you're targeting something like a CEO at a fast-growing B2B SaaS company in the EU versus a VP of sales at a 1 to 10 size company in US. That's a small business. So now that we have the subject line, we have the preview line, and now together, we've both crafted your value proposition. The next step is creating an effective call to action. Your call to action is the bridge between taking your email and turning it into a conversation. The most effective call to actions are soft and they're low friction, like I mentioned earlier. It doesn't really feel like a commitment to a sales process. So here's 3 call to actions that I recommend using. So you can give them an alternative call to action. This essentially just gives them a choice, which can increase response rates by letting them choose their preferred level of engagement. Because again, a lot of these CEOs, a lot of these decision makers, they're either on their laptop completely focused like I am right now, or they might be at a coffee shop with their girlfriend or with their team members, and they're just quickly checking their email. Give them options based off of where they are. You could say something like, is this worth a quick call? Or would you prefer that I send over some relevant case studies? The second type of call to action is a value first call to action. This is something like, I can send over the research report. Would that be helpful? Or happy to share what we learned from similar companies. You're essentially just providing value that create a natural next step, which is a conversation. The third and final call to action, which is my favorite, which I like using the most, is essentially just minimizing the perceived cost of engagement down to close to zero. Something like this would be, is this worth a 60-second Loom video? Or can I send you a 60-second Loom video on how we could help you and then XYZ, how exactly you can help them? This is a lot less threatening than, hey, let's schedule a 45-minute discovery call. This is also going to get you a lot more positive replies, which of course is going to increase your sender reputation, which improves your deliverability. So it's essentially an upward spiral effect. The key is just making your call to action feel like a natural next step, rather than just the first step in a sales process designed to only benefit yourself. You need to benefit the prospect. So this next section is essentially about A/B testing different messaging strategies. So this multi-angle approach recognizes that different people respond to different things. For example, if you're targeting a specific ideal client profile, some of your leads might respond better to cost savings, some of them might respond better to efficiency gains, and a third might respond better to a competitive advantage. You testing these several different types of strategies allows you to see which angle, which positioning converts best with your specific audience. So an example could be a sequential value delivery. Instead of asking for an email, you're sending them industry insights, you're sending them value, research, helpful resources. You're demonstrating that you're an expert and that you just want to build trust over time. The sales cycle on this might be longer, but it might be worth it if you have a very expensive product. The second one is a problem agitation. Instead of actually immediately pitching your solution, you help them understand the true costs and implications of their current situation. We've gone over your subject line, we've gone over your preview line, your value proposition, and just now your call to action. So the next step is we need to test as many of these variables as possible until we find a winning sequence. So the most successful cold email campaigns aren't just built once and then sent. They're continuously worked on and systematically tested and optimized every single day. Every single element of your email can be tested, and small improvements every single day can compound into dramatically better numbers. So when you're testing your different offer and value proposition, This helps you understand which one benefits and resonates most with your specific prospects. Again, like I said, A/B testing as much as possible. And when it comes to your call to actions, there's a massive difference between the overall reply rate and positive reply rate when it comes to a very low friction call to action and a high friction call to action. So what I would recommend is testing both. Test soft versus hard, test question-based versus statement-based call to actions, different levels of commitment, a Loom video, a sales asset. Test as many things as possible, but make sure to track everything religiously and also see which one is bringing in the most customers, because that is the most important metric. In the next section, we'll go how to properly track and A/B test everything. But here is where most businesses do make a critical mistake when they are testing these different things. They test a lot of different copy and messaging variations while completely ignoring the actual base foundations, which is data quality, deliverability, and other fundamental issues like DNS records, spin tags, everything like that. You need to get the fundamentals right before you optimize these details. And now that we've covered the strategic and tactical sides of the messaging, you might be wondering more about the technical side of actually implementing and actually setting up these cold email campaigns. Like, how do you even set up sequences? How do you manage responses? How do you handle the volume required to make cold email work at scale? Now, these are exactly the operational challenges that we're going to address next, because great messaging is completely worthless if you can't actually execute the basics properly. Chapter 6, Campaign Setup and Execution. So now that you understand how to craft compelling messages, we need to talk about the actual operational side of cold email, how you actually set up campaigns, how you launch them, how you manage them, how you optimize them, and how you can handle serious volume while always maintaining high deliverability and high reply rates. So the first step is actually choosing the right cold email platform. For this, it's very important because you need to actually find the right platform so you can effectively scale your campaigns. For cold email, you need specialized platforms that are designed for cold email. I would not recommend using something like MailChimp. I would not recommend sending cold emails from your CRM or from HubSpot, or even sending a lot of cold emails from the actual Gmail user interface. You need specialized platforms that understand deliverability requirements, they have proper warming up systems, and they offer you the right features for cold email deliverability at scale. The leading platforms that I recommend are Instantly, SmartLead, and then emailbison.com, because they're specifically tailored for cold email. Each one of them has their specific strengths and weaknesses, but they all do share the same goal and characteristics that make them serious for cold email operators. So let me show you a quick example and what Instantly.ai looks like and how to actually use their platform. So this is going to be the actual email accounts interface. If you guys do want email accounts done for you by Instantly, go to this setup right here, /app/accounts, and then go to add new. Right here, you have a couple of options. You can either set up done for you email setup, which is what I recommend, or you can buy pre-warmed email accounts. This is about 100 times easier than actually setting up your email accounts yourself. So they're going to set up the accounts, they'll set up the domains, the email accounts, they'll reconnect accounts that automatically disconnect. This will save you time and money. They have high quality US IP accounts. I'm using them for myself. And of course, it is going to be done for you completely. So this is what I would recommend. And then right here, you can just put the forwarding domain. So let's say your main domain is amazon.com. If somebody does type in tryamazon.com or easy.tryamazon.com into their web browser right here, they're going to be forwarded to amazon.com. Right here, just put your first name, your last name, and then let's just say Cody Carnes, and then we will click add, and then we will just place this order right here. And then these are going to be warming up for 2 weeks. About 2 months ago, I actually ended up buying 8 domains and then 16 email accounts from Instantly's done for you email account setup. And right here, these are for my wife and then my wife's mom. I actually ended up setting up cold email campaigns for them for their services. So I'm going to show you guys how I did that and how you can do the same. So at this point, we bought these email accounts. If you guys did purchase Instantly's done for you setup, all you have to do is just wait around 2 weeks, unfortunately, and then you can start sending cold emails. But in that 2 week time frame, I would absolutely recommend setting up every single part of the process for cold email. The way that I actually ended up getting leads is using a tool that we talked about earlier, which is IntelliMatch inside of Findymail's platform. I literally just did the most simple AI sentence, and then from there it is going to give me valid emails. So just go over to Findymail, go over to the IntelliMatch product right here. And then all I asked it was AI companies in US, 1 to 10 employee size. That's all I did for actually sending these cold emails for them. So once IntelliMatch actually gave me these sample results, I'm going to click export results. And I just want a couple of companies right now, just to show you guys an example. We'll put 50 and then we'll go to find contacts. I just want to find the founder and president as well. I don't need their phone number. All I need is their email address. And then I'm going to click next and then start export. You're going to be on this page for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And then IntelliMatch is actually going to give you a fully enriched CSV. And then we're going to push that into instantly. So now we'll just wait, we'll be patient, and then we'll get our CSV. All right, so you're going to see this page right here. Just simply click download results and your CSV is going to come up here. Now we're going to head over to instantly. We're going to go to the campaign section. Once we click add new, we're just going to title this AI companies in US 1 to 10, and then we'll just say C-level decision makers. At this point, we're going to be in the leads section right here. Just click add leads, upload CSV, and then put in your IntelliMatch right here. So right here, we will just make sure that the domain is correct. We'll make sure that the employee size is here. We have the contact first name, we have the contact last name, we have their job title, we have their LinkedIn, and then of course we have their email. So now we just click upload all. We have 12 contacts, that's fine. This was just a sample. And then from here, we're going to be in the sequences section. So like I mentioned earlier, your subject lines, always try to keep them as short as possible and lowercase. So this is the exact script and subject line that I used for my wife for her LinkedIn outbound. So subject line was essentially just pipeline growth, and here's the whole email. So it would be, so the full email would be, hey, first name, want pipeline growth, but don't have time for content or daily prospecting. That's essentially a problem recognition based into a question. We handle both sides of your double pipeline for you, which is our offer. 2 high leverage LinkedIn posts a week to build trust and visibility. 400 plus personalized LinkedIn messages a month to handpicked leads, qualified sales calls done for you, performance backed and guaranteed backed. This is built for busy founders, async communication, which just means, hey, we'll do Loom videos, not a ton of calls, and outcome driven. Want to trial us for 3 days? Thank you, full name. And then for the follow-up, we would do this 3 days later. We would say, hey, first name, mind if I send over a 60-second Loom video on how we can build your personal brand on LinkedIn with 5 minutes a week of your time. Thanks, Valentina. Boom. So that is a very strong sequence. And once you have your sequences set up, you want to go to schedule next. For my schedule, we're in Atlanta, so I'm going to be Eastern time. Let's just say 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. But you can change that depending on who you want to target. If we're targeting EMEA, I would probably put this to 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. London time. Again, whoever you are targeting, put the right schedule right here so you're not emailing them at 2 a.m. in the morning. So now that we go to options, we want to go to the accounts to use section. Now this part is pretty cool because previously you had to separately click on each email account and then add them to your campaign. But now Instantly actually made this super easy, and you can do this in Instantly, Smart Lead, and Email Bison. So inside of your campaign, instead of clicking, at one point I had around 1,000 email accounts and 1 Instantly account. I would have to manually click on each one. Now we can just select a simple tag, and then it's going to select all those email accounts. For here, just keep this normal. For the stop sending emails on replies section, just keep this to enabled. For open tracking, put this to disabled always. We do not want to add open tracking. For delivery optimization, always select this right here, send emails as text only. For the daily limit, it really does depend how many inboxes and domains you have. For our volume right now, we only want to send around 50 emails a day to this specific ideal client profile. So we'll click save, and then we will head on over to the show advanced options. For the CRM owner, right here, you could either select one of your SDRs, one of your account executives, or you can just put your own first name right here. Custom tags, I don't really use this ever. For the sending pattern, I always like to keep the minimum time anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. And then any random additional time, anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. Max new leads, you can just put this as no limit. Prioritize new leads, I would definitely recommend selecting this as on, so you're prioritizing reaching out to net new leads rather than your scheduled follow-ups. In terms of auto-optimizing A to Z testing, the winning metric is always going to be reply rate. You don't have to select anything in the provider matching section. This one essentially means that if you're emailing 2 people at the same company and one person does end up replying, you're actually going to stop sending emails to the other person as well. If you are doing account-based marketing, I would definitely recommend setting this up. So stop sending emails on auto reply. That's fine. You can just leave it like that. All 3 of these you can just keep blank and then just click save, and then you guys are actually good to start launching. Boom. So now that we've just walked through how to actually set up your cold email campaigns, I wanted to quickly touch on campaign architecture. So what I mean by campaign architecture is essentially setting up properly segmented groups. For example, inside of here, this ideal client profile is C-level executives of AI companies, 1 to 10 employee size in the US. So now if we did want to target another ideal client profile, let's just say SEO agencies, EMEA 50 to 100 size, and then let's just say founders. If I wanted to target this specific segment, that would be absolutely perfect because of how niched it is. You can send a very specific message to SEO agencies in EMEA of this company size, of this exact job title. And what a lot of people do is if they have this ideal client profile, for example, they would push these leads inside of our other campaign of the AI companies. That's the worst thing you can do because it's very hard to send specific messaging to these 2 very different ideal client profiles. So what I would recommend is if you are targeting an ICP like this, only add leads in this exact ICP. Literally just head on over to IntelliMatch, copy and paste this exact campaign name, put it in IntelliMatch, and then get these leads and then just push them right into this campaign. A good rule of thumb is to aim for segments of at least 500 to 1,000 prospects. If you have any number below that, it's very hard because it's such a little amount of data. So now that we've discussed how to set up your campaigns and we've discussed my exact campaign segmentation process, let's quickly go over deliverability management at scale. And there's a couple key pillars to this. So sender reputation management is absolutely crucial for your cold email success. This way you don't have to keep rebuying inboxes, keep rebuying domains, and keep paying for things that you don't need. So from a base level, it includes maintaining proper DNS records, following your authentication protocols, and then of course, monitoring your reputation across different email service providers like Google and Microsoft. Think of your sender reputation like your credit score, right? It takes a lot of time to build, and it really can be damaged so quickly if you're not very careful. The second pillar is list hygiene. This becomes absolutely critical at scale because if you send to a lot of invalid emails, that is going to hurt your sender reputation because Google and Microsoft are going to see that you are getting so many bounce rates. You need systematic processes for verifying email addresses, from removing bounces, and managing your unsubscribes and your do not contact lists. The third pillar is optimizing your sending patterns. So this helps you maintain a human-like natural sending behavior that does not trigger any spam filters. Now we did this inside of Instantly. If you guys remember, we essentially just changed the time limit from one email to the other email. And we kind of randomized a couple of things there, so we do mimic some human behavior. The fourth pillar is response rate monitoring. If your response rate goes from 10% one day to next week, it goes down to 1%, and you didn't change anything, there's probably a big chance that your emails are going to spam. Really good platforms are going to provide analytics that help you spot these things early. So if something like that does happen, you know for a fact that you don't need to change your list, you don't need to change your copy. All you have to do is just fix your infrastructure. And then the final pillar is the copy variation. This is what we talked about earlier, essentially just using spin tags to create message variations and avoiding sending the same exact email 37 times every single day. We want Google and Microsoft to see that we're sending very unique emails, and every single email that we're sending is about 30 to 40 words different than the other one that we sent about 5 minutes ago, 2 hours ago, 4 hours ago, etc., etc. All right, so this is some absolute sauce. This is everything that happens after you actually get a positive cold email reply. This is going to be a very fast system, and again, speed is critical. A very fast system that goes from positive replies into warm sales meetings just with this one technique. I call it the reply VSL system. This is going to be your lever to get more meetings from your positive replies. So step number one, and this is probably the most important, it is called speed to lead. You need to reply to every single one of your leads through cold email as fast as humanly possible. So a way you can do this is actually setting up either Slack alerts or having Gmail on your phone. Technique number 2 is sending a Loom video, not a calendar link. Send a 60-second Loom video, mention their name, their website, exactly how you can help them, show social proof. Send this right after they reply to your email. Show your face, talk as much as humanly possible because we want to build trust. The next thing that you want to do after you send that Loom video is send them a connection request on LinkedIn. Hey John, just replied to your email, figured I'd send a quick connection request here. And then follow up every couple days. Remind them gently until there's some sort of forward momentum towards a conversation. And if you do have their phone number, by the way, once you actually do send the Loom video and LinkedIn connection request, you can quickly call their phone number. If they answer, start a conversation. If they don't answer, send them a voice note. Hey John, just sent you a Loom video on how we could fix XYZ. Give me a call when you can. And here's a massive bonus. This is probably going to be the most important lever when it comes to getting more meetings. It's called building an evergreen sales asset. What I mean by this is setting up some sort of PDF or some sort of Google Doc, some sort of Google slide that essentially covers every common question that somebody like them, which is a prospect, might have about you, your company, your service, your social proof. Include your top 20 Q&As, case studies, any sort of videos that you have of your product or yourself, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever sort of moat you have, mention it in the sales asset. Social proof is massive. And then we need to remember that this is cold traffic. Lack of trust is through the roof. So you need to minimize that as much as possible with this sales asset. So a dream scenario is somebody replies to your cold email. Within 10 minutes, you are sending them a Loom video. In the Loom video, you're going over who you are, how you can help them specifically. And then you're also going to mention the sales asset in the Loom video. And then you're sending them a LinkedIn connection request, and then you're trying to warm call them as well. That is going to be the best process to get as many meetings as possible from cold email. So in this Gamma doc that I gave you guys, there's going to be a section called response management and lead qualification. I'm essentially giving you guys a bunch of scripts and templates that I use when a prospect replies in a specific way, because not all responses are created equal. A lot of them are going to be very different than one another. So I actually ended up setting up scripts right here. If you guys do want to check this out, click the link in the below in the Gamma doc and go to this section, which is in chapter 6. Once you want to set up after that first initial 30-minute sprint is you want to set up what we call a subsequence. So a subsequence is a follow-up message that sends if your prospect does not reply or take any action towards a conversation. A lot of the times you can automate these subsequences, but here's the main lever of them. It allows you to stay top of mind, provide additional value, context, information, and it gives prospects multiple different angles to engage with yourself and your company. Most successful subsequences use around 3 to 7 emails over a 2 to 4 week period. Your first subsequence should focus on establishing relevance and providing clear value. Make a good impression. Again, this is our reply VSL system. And then everything after that is going to be the follow-up emails that we need to set up. So your second email can provide additional context about your offer. You could give them some sort of trial, give them a relevant case study, or just address common questions that they might have already asked or that usually prospects like them ask. The key is just adding new information from a different position rather than just repeating your very first email. And then your third email might offer some sort of lead magnet, some sort of value, a useful resource, industry insight, or a helpful tool to help demonstrate your expertise. This is a very strong way to re-engage prospects who weren't really ready to engage with your initial first couple follow-ups. And the final email is what we call a breakup email to just ask if there's a better time or if you should close this out altogether. A good one that I use is, hey John, any interest in that Loom video, or should we close this out? ? Thanks, Cody. You'll be very surprised how many replies you actually get from that breakup email. And then a quick tip, after you do reply to your lead with your reply VSL system, check to make sure that they automatically get added to your subsequences, because this is just giving us more ways to push them closer to our calendar. So once you have your campaigns set up and running correctly, the focus shifts from, hey, how do I build this? It's to, hey, how can I scale volume and optimize performance as I scale? So volume scaling requires adding more domains, more email accounts, and pushing your sending capacity while, and this is the big part, maintaining deliverability and performance. So let's quickly talk about performance optimization. That involves testing a lot and improving every single aspect of your campaigns. So you're A/B testing different value propositions, you're A/B testing different call to actions, you're testing different ideal client profiles, you're improving your data quality, and then of course you're refining your ICP based on actual results. So if you've sent to B2B SaaS companies and you're getting 0 replies, but you're sending to marketing agencies and you're getting 90% of your results, maybe that's a clear indication that you need to refine your ideal client profile and target more of who's working. So as you do start to scale, process automation becomes increasingly important. This involves building processes around prospect research, email personalization, categorizing responses, ideally with AI, and of course, follow-up scheduling and sub-sequences. The goal is to maintain the quality of small campaigns while handling a lot larger volumes. And inside of your cold email sending tool, your Instantly, Smart Lead, or Email Bison, they're going to have very strong analytics and reporting systems to help you understand what exactly isn't working and what you need to cut, and what exactly is working and what you need to double down on. Don't try to guess your way to scale. Make sure that you use data. So you can track performance by your segments, by identifying trends over time, and ultimately understanding which factors are driving the best results for yourself. And as you start scaling cold email, it is very important to build a strong team, because as you start to scale to hundreds of thousands of cold emails every single month, it is very hard for one person to handle everything by themselves. So you might need to add specialized roles for ideal client profile research, for creating the copy, for managing replies, for warm calling, for setting up the Loom videos. Have clear processes and systems so you can maintain quality as you grow. And if you have a very established business with a full team and you already have a dialed in sales process, we're going to quickly talk about how we can integrate cold email into that sales process. Because cold email campaigns don't exist in isolation, they need to integrate with your existing workflow. And a good way to do that is to train your sales team to effectively convert cold leads. Emphasize on cold leads, because leads from cold email are completely different. It's black and white than leads from inbound, whether that's from a personal brand or from ads or from SEO. Your sales team needs to understand how to handle these differences. And you need to have strong feedback loops between your marketing and salespeople. And this is going to help improve both lead quality and your sales conversion rates. Just making sure that they're on the same page. Regular reviews of lead quality, improving the conversion rates, and reasons why lost deals happened. That's all going to help refine your targeting and improve your cold email performance. Attribution tracking, think of this like ads. You're understanding which campaigns and messages generate the best customers, not just the most replies. So this requires tracking prospects through your entire buyer's journey and analyzing performance based off of hard revenue, actual data, cold hard cash, rather than just response rates. And now that we've covered the operational aspects of the campaign setup and the execution, you might be thinking like, wow, this sounds like a lot to manage. And it really is, right? That's the game. That's cold email. This complexity is exactly why most businesses either never scale their cold email efforts, or they try to scale and they just see very, very declining performances as they go, and then they give up. But what happens when you get all these pieces working together is you create a predictable, scalable lead generation machine. It's probably going to be a lot cheaper and also a lot faster than other channels. Chapter 7, Advanced Strategies and Automation. So now that you have a solid foundation in infrastructure, data quality, messaging, and campaign setup, we're going to explore the advanced strategies that will separate you from average cold email operators. These are the techniques that allow business owners to scale far and fast. And you'll probably guess that it is using a lot of AI. Advanced cold email operators use data intelligently. They automate repetitive tasks without losing personalization, and they create systematic approaches to continuous improvement when it comes to cold email. A lot of all this talk is essentially just showing you how incredible AI can be for your cold email. A tool that I recommend using is clay.com. It is absolutely incredible, and I'm going to show you guys in about 2 minutes. So AI can do some pretty crazy things. I'm going to show you guys inside of Clay. It can automate any sort of prospect research. It can assist in actually writing the cold email content, and it can categorize incoming replies. And something crazy that it can do as well is it can analyze your sales calls and then identify patterns that can potentially be pushed into your email messaging. Chapter 8, measuring success and continuous improvement. So another big difference between businesses that temporarily see success with cold email and who actually build entire companies off of sustainable cold email growth comes down to actually optimize the right things. You need to understand what are the key metrics that matter the most. There's a couple right here. Response rates. In 2025, response rates are going to be the main indicator as to whether your emails are actually delivering. So after 24 hours, if your reply rate is below 1%, that is a problem with deliverability. After a week, if it is still not above, a 2 or 3% reply rate, it might be an infrastructure issue. Positive reply rate is another one, and we can essentially just change this section and we can title it your contacts per positive reply. Goal is to get around 1 positive reply per 200 contacts sent to. That's a very strong base KPI. Meeting book rate is essentially just saying how many leads go from the positive reply stage into a meeting booked stage. If you're seeing 1 positive reply per 200 contacts, but let's say for example, you got 10 leads last week and you only got 1 meeting, maybe you need to work on your follow-up system. And then opportunity creation rates measures how many cold email generated meetings turn into real sales opportunities. This helps you understand the quality of prospects that you're reaching out to and the effectiveness of your initial qualification. The next one is pipeline generation. It measures the total value of opportunities that are created by your cold email campaigns. This is where you start connecting your email activity to actual business impact and ROI. And the final metric is cost per acquisition. This calculates the total cost of generating a customer through cold email, the direct cost and the time investment as well. The next thing I want to talk about is A/B testing, and not just guessing, but actually properly setting up a system for A/B testing. A/B test documentation ensures that you learn both from the successful and your unsuccessful tests. So this includes what exactly you tested, why did you test it, what were the results, and what did I learn for future campaigns? Building a systematic process for A/B testing is very, very important, because think of this like you're running ads. Like you essentially are reaching out to 10, 20,000 prospects a month in your ideal client profile for a lot of the times less than something like $2,000. The next section is building a culture of continuous improvement. So essentially just setting the right goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Right? Not things like, hey, I want to improve our coding performance, right? Like that's so broad that doesn't drive meaningful action. So have regular review cycles that ensure optimization happens no matter what. So weekly tactical reviews, monthly strategic reviews, quarterly planning sessions of your campaigns. That is going to be very, very important for constantly improving and building a compound effect over time. The next thing is knowledge sharing. This is so important when it comes to cold email, because you're ensuring that the best insights and practices are distributed across your team rather than staying with individual contributors. The next one is knowledge sharing with your team. So this ensures that insights and best practices are distributed across your team rather than just staying with one individual contributor. So this might include regular team meetings, documentation of best practices, or just formal training sessions. And always have a mindset about experimenting things. Always be creative. Never think, oh, there's like 10 ideas that I want to have, but none of them are good. I'm not going to test them with cold email. Like you need to test as many ideas as possible. The more ideas you test, the higher likelihood that you're going to find a winning idea. And a winning idea could generally mean tens of thousands of dollars through cold email. But when it does come to experimenting and testing new ideas, I would combine your creative intuition with data as well. And essentially just build a machine. So what do I mean by data-driven decision making? It means prioritizing insights from actual past and current results than just setting up opinions or assumptions. So this requires having strong data, analytics, reporting, understanding how to actually interpret that data, and building processes that incorporate insights into regular decision-making processes for your campaigns. And then of course, external learning. You're essentially just staying up to date with the best cold email practices. The top 3 people that I would recommend for this is Taylor Heron on LinkedIn, Nick Abraham, and then Eric Novoslawski. I would follow these 3 people on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and always stay up to date with what they're saying. So do you remember in the beginning of the video where I said I'm going to share my outbound tech stack that can send 20,000 cold emails a month for less than what most people spend on lunch? This is that tech stack. So for your infrastructure, set up PremiumInboxes.com and ScaledMail.com. The pricing for this amount of volume is going to be around $200 a month. In terms of your cold email software that's going to warm up your emails and start sending these emails, use instantly.ai, or you can use smartly.ai. I would recommend Instantly. But if you start to scale cold email into the hundreds of thousands a month, I would use a tool called emailbison.com. That's $500 a month flat fee, no matter if you're sending 10 million cold emails a month or 100,000. And it is an absolutely incredible software with an awesome founder. And for Instantly and Smartly, it's going to be around $97 a month. So for your data, it's going to cost a couple $100 a month, depending on if you need just emails or emails and mobiles. If you need mobiles, it's obviously going to cost a lot more, but I would use Findymail.com and IntelliMatch. And the total cost to send this is around $500 a month, which is crazy if you think about it. To send 20,000 forms of communication to your exact ideal customer profile, it's just $500 a month. That's pretty insane to me when you think about other marketing channels. So your next steps, if you're ready to implement what we've learned in this course, here's how I recommend you approach it. So set up your infrastructure, build your lead list, start with a pilot campaign. Test your approach, your ideas based off of what you learned on a smaller scale before committing to sending tens of thousands of cold emails every single month. Choose a specific audience segment based off of customers that you either currently have or that you have a case study of. Craft very targeted messaging and send around 500 emails to validate your approach. If you identify any issues, talk with your cold email sending tool or just ask us in the comments below. Focus on fundamentals. So make sure that your infrastructure is properly set up, your data quality is high, your messaging is clear and compelling. Don't try to go advanced and be complex, just focus on the basics. And measure everything from the beginning. Set up proper tracking and analytics so you can understand what's working and what's not working. You need to have full visibility. This becomes crucial as you scale. And this is an important one. Stay focused on business outcomes rather than optimizing minor details. So the goal is to generate qualified prospects from cold email and drive business growth. It is not to optimize your email open rates and spend 3 days doing that. And for your last and final step, it is to commit to continuous learning and improving by 1% every day with your cold email systems. Those who stay current with the best practices and continually test them are always going to see better results. Most campaigns fail because businesses are sending emails to either invalid email addresses or just irrelevant prospects. Finding qualified prospects and finding their email and validating that email and then finding their mobile typically takes hours of manual research. But with Findymail's tool IntelliMatch, all you have to do is use that one sentence AI prompt that we did earlier using natural language, and it's going to do that for you in about 5 minutes. Email verification that most tools get wrong is handled automatically by Findymail's backend, and you are guaranteed to see less than 5% bounce rates. And the best part is manual prospect qualification and the data cleaning is completely eliminated with AI-powered confidence scoring by Findymail. So I've included both links to findymail.com and IntelliMatch in the description below if you want to see them, if you want to check them out and see how they can eliminate your data problems. You'll of course still need your sending platform and your infrastructure, but you'll never have to worry about finding the right people or reaching their invalid emails again. So I hope you enjoyed this beginner's guide to cold email course. Drop a like, drop a comment if you have any questions below, and we'll see you in the next video.